Hi, I'm Jenny Haddle. I'm a Learning and Adaptive Management Advisor for the Implementer-led Design, Evidence, Analysis, and Learning activity funded by USAID's Bureau for Humanitarian Assistance. IDEAL worked with CLA and MEL professionals to design and create and test an activity learning cycle toolkit. In this introductory video, I'd like to share the toolkit with you and give you some guidance on how you might be able to adapt those tools for your own context. I'd like to emphasize that this is a starting point for you to work with your activity. The two main tools are a PowerPoint and an Excel file. The PowerPoint is really a collaborative tool for you to work with your team to analyze your learning cycle and hopefully improve your learning cycle. The Excel file is meant to be a planning and tracking document. So you can plan for your learning activities and you can also track the learning and adaptive management decisions that come from your learning activities. So with that, I'd really like to get started and share some of the tools with you.
Here we are at the landing page for the Activity Learning Cycle Toolkit at fsnnetwork.org. As you can see, there's this handy roadmap to help you navigate your way through the different components of the toolkit, the different tools within the toolkit. You can click on this and access that as a PowerPoint presentation in case you would like to download it and share it or print it or just use it for your own purposes. So you can see that the toolkit itself is composed of an introduction document, 3 case studies, a mapping and assessment tool, and a planning and tracking tool. Let's take a look at the introduction to the Activity Learning Cycle Toolkit. The introduction provides a more in-depth look at the purpose of the toolkit, describes a learning cycle, and defines the categories used in this toolkit to classify learning activities in a learning cycle. The introduction document is meant to give you ideas about where to start with the toolkit. There's really no right place to start. Just use the ideas in it to help you find the starting place that works best for you. The intro document can also be shared with members of your team who may be unfamiliar with a learning cycle, but who you may want to include as you consider how to shape or improve the learning cycle of your activity for more effective adaptive management. Well, let's go back and check out the user case studies. There's 3 of them. Let's go ahead and open one of these up. So the 3 case studies feature the experiences of learning professionals who piloted the toolkit for use in their different activities. As you can see, this is an example from the Amalima Loco Resilience Food Security activity in Zimbabwe. The case studies highlight the adaptability of the toolkit as each user adapted the tools to better fit their needs in the context in which they were working. You can use these case studies to provide inspiration for how you may want to work with the toolkit, but remember, there is not one way to do learning. There is only the way that works for you and your team. Make sure you reflect on your own team's needs and consider how this tool can best help you to address those needs. All right, let's head back to the main landing page. Let's go ahead and start taking a look at the tools within the toolkit. Let's start with the mapping and assessment tool. So this tool is a PowerPoint to be used with activity staff to reflect on your activity's learning cycle, map it out, and consider how you may want to change it to improve the activity's use of data for reflection, learning, and adaptive management. So let's open the slide deck and start with slide 3. I already have it open here on my computer. Slide 3 is a short description of the tool and its potential uses. It also provides you with a definition of a learning cycle. Slide 4 provides step-by-step instructions for using the tool. I'll walk you through these instructions as we view the rest of the slides in the tool. Slide 5 is a learning activity brainstorm. You will work with your team to consider and categorize your own learning activities, starting with the evidence generation and management category. The slide provides a definition and examples of each category to help your team with brainstorming. You list all activities in the right-hand column. So maybe you start here with evidence generation and management, and a couple activities that your team comes up with are context monitoring and community committee meetings. Then you proceed through the rest of the learning activity categories and list all of the different activities that you and your team can think of. Once the team feels that this list is complete, you can move on to slide 6, where you will map each activity on an annual timeline. For instance, perhaps, as we discussed in the last slide, your team collects context monitoring data on a monthly basis. You can type in context monitoring here. Slide this over a bit to give it some space, and use this handy line here to indicate that this is a monthly activity. Or perhaps you conduct an annual theory of change review. Find the appropriate month in which that takes place. Let's say that you do a theory of change review in June. And then you continue adding activities until the map is complete. If you need more room for activities on your map, you can skip down to slides 9, 10, and 11. Here we go, 9, 10, and 11, where there's one entire slide for each category. To see a completed map, you can go to slide 8, where you can review a sample activity learning cycle map for a fictional activity. Once you've completed your map, go to slide 7 and assess your learning cycle with your team. This exercise gives the team a chance to think about how data is being used for learning and how learning is being used for decision-making and adaptive management. You can see there's questions on the left-hand side, a space to record responses, and a space to record recommended changes after reflecting. If your team wants to change these questions, or if you would like to add other questions or potentially translate the questions, it's very easy to go here to View, Slide Master, and then update the questions. After done, just close the master view. You can come over and run through the exercise with the team. This reflection exercise can really help you and your team identify if you are collecting the right data and using all the data for reflection and learning, or if you're providing enough opportunities to reflect and learn from your data, or if there are areas in which you are duplicating efforts, or if there are areas where you need to add activities to ensure that you are connecting the dots between gathering data and making informed decisions for adapting your activity. During the reflection, the team may recommend removing an activity, adding an activity, or changing the timing of an activity to better reflect the timing of learning activities from other categories. Let's take an example. Question 2 asks, is there any learning that is not being captured and or applied for activity design and adaptation? Why? The team reflects and they decide that learning from monthly monitoring visits isn't being captured or used. And they think about why this is and realize that there really is just no standard template or form for guiding the staff member through the monthly monitoring visit, and decide that it would be beneficial to create a monthly monitoring visit reflection template, which could just be a template with some simple questions to help guide the person who's doing the monthly monitoring visit while they're conducting the visit or after in reflecting and capturing learning that they may be receiving as they're interacting with people in the field. All right, so let's take a look at slide 8 again. Remember, this is our fictional project learning cycle. So looking at this slide, you can see that most learning activities revolve around evidence generation, and management. This team may look at this map and realize they are only reflecting on their data once a year during their annual pause and reflect, and only adapting programming once a year during work planning. After discussion, they decide they want to add in quarterly pause and reflects to be more responsive to information being received through context monitoring and performance monitoring. So they can look here at the data analysis, reflection, and learning capture category and add in some quarterly pause and reflects for doing that reflection exercise. Additionally, they may leverage learning from the quarterly pause and reflect by adding an activity in which they review and adapt work plans by sector. That activity would go in the activity design, planning, and adaptation category. After completing the mapping and assessment activity, you can go back to the first slide and delete it. Then, in the second slide, add in your activities logo, and you have a record of your team's reflection in a visual map of your activities learning cycle. Next, let's go and explore the planning and tracking tool. The Activity Learning Cycle Planning and Tracking tool is an Excel spreadsheet with 3 tabs. You'll need to download it before working with it, so you can go here to Save As, download a copy. I already have a copy downloaded, so let's take a look at that. The first tab, which is the introduction, provides information about the planning and tracking tool and describes how to use it. The second tab is the Learning Cycle Planning tool. The categories in the planner correspond to the activity learning cycle map categories used in the mapping and assessment exercise. So you can see evidence generation, data analysis, reflection, and learning capture, and activity design, planning, and adaptation, all color-coded to match the map that you made in the mapping and assessment tool. You can add all your team's learning activities over here in this left-hand side, and then answer the guiding questions to think through the details of each to ensure that time and resources are allocated for learning activities, relevant stakeholders are being included, and learning is being captured and used for decision making. It's important to note that this sheet is editable and can be adapted to better suit your team's needs. Questions can be edited, they can be added or deleted. You can combine or separate out any columns. Terminology can be changed, or it can also be translated for the local context. So please feel free to make this planner useful for you. If you are interested in seeing how other implementing partner teams have edited this tool, you can just go check out the case studies and take a look at how they change the tool to fit their own needs. The last tab, which is also editable, is the learning tracking tool. So the tracker is a place to record critical learnings from the different learning and reflection events that your team conducts. You can track actions and adaptations that are recommended in response to learnings, and the information captured in this tab can support critical inflection points and tell the full story of adaptive management in your activity.
I hope this brief introduction to the Activity Learning Cycle Toolkit helps you get started thinking about how you can use and adapt it for your own context. We would love to hear from you how you do end up using the toolkit. So please feel free to share your story with us at info@fsnnetwork.org. And thank you so much for your time. Happy learning.